to get me so I can go to the hotel.
We're going to go to break, and when we come back, we'll find out what happened at the hotel and find out about Irving's brother who called you, and then what Irving did about this. Irving Gonzalez himself recruited. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. We'll also speak with a counter-recruiting activist whose husband served in Iraq, and we'll talk to a U.S. Congressmember who's calling for an investigation, as well as a U.S. Army Recruiting Command spokesperson who will join us from Kentucky. Stay with us.
Two planes are flying across the country now. New York's so pretty in the fall. Hey, Mike, look out. But Mac calls back, Billy, I'll be careful. I'm sure they built them to stand so tall. And now 19 miles to Baghdad. They fall and work hard to tie a yellow ribbon around something, as if something good had begun. But we'll tie a yellow ribbon around something.
Lizzie West singing 19 Miles to Baghdad, singing in her hometown of Columbia, Missouri. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Our guests are joining us in Houston, Texas, Irving Gonzalez and Eric Martinez. Irving is 18, Eric 17. They were both recruited. We're going to go to finish their story, then talk with the other guests from Texas and Kentucky. Irving Gonzalez, once Eric went to the hotel, how did your little brother get involved?
Well, I talked to Eric on the Wednesday before anything happened, and I told him that he wasn't going to have to go. But I didn't keep in contact with him that morning or that afternoon, and around nighttime, like around 10 or 11, I told my brother, call Eric, see what he's doing. And when he called him, Eric just seemed like really low-pitched voice. He didn't tell us. It took him a while until he finally told us that he was already at the hotel and he didn't want to tell nobody bye because he was just going to get sad. So we're like, you're at the hotel, and we're like, you don't have to go. I don't know why you think you need to go. You don't need to go. And Eric was like, no, I need to go, and you're going to need to go too. They're going to go get you too. This isn't a game. You can't play with them. And I was like, well, just hold on. I'll call you back. And that's when I decided to call Maureen and Dwight, and I told them about the situation, and they started helping us by contacting anti-recruiters. From Washington and people that know more information about it to talk to Eric, because he was kind of like in a state of not knowing who to trust. And we put him on three-way, and we talked to him, and finally we were able to get everything straight, what will be good and if we should go get him and stuff. So Eric was like, okay, come pick me up. But Eric didn't know where he was at. They just dropped him off he just knew he was at a hotel. He looks out the window. He said all he saw was an Olive Garden. So, I mean, that's the only thing we knew where to look for him at. And he finally called downstairs, the main office, and they told him the address. And it was like an hour away from our house, and it's an area I had never been to in Houston. But finally we went down there. And when we went down there, we saw that there was security going around the hotel, plus there was maybe like 10 recruiters in the main office downstairs. And he was in the second floor because when we got there, he was already in the balcony looking at us. It took us a while thinking about how we were going to get him out, because I was actually thinking of just walking in and seeing what would happen, but it was just too many recruiters. I was like, nah, we're going to have to find another way because they're going to ask me questions. And it took us a while, and I mean, the elevator didn't want to go down. They had a program to where, like, if you were on the second floor, you couldn't go down unless someone came up to get you. And he was actually thinking about jumping out the window. He actually climbed down to the first floor and he was gonna jump from there. But there was tubings sticking up, and it was just not gonna be safe. That was like the last resort or something. And my friend Junior, he was with us. It was me, my brother Ivan, and Junior, and we were in the car. And he just decided to say, "Well, what about if I just walk in and try to get him out?" And he put on his iPod and he walked in, and they were trying to catch his attention. They were screaming, trying to see who he was. Like, "Hey, come here!" And he just kept walking, and he walked straight into the elevator. And when he got to the second floor, he held the door open so Eric could go in. And Eric was hiding on the second floor because there was recruiters and security walking around the second floor also. So when he got in the elevator, they went down and they went out through the back exit where we met him at. And that's whenever we're like, okay, well, he's out, let's go home. But we were completely lost, so it took us a while to get home. But he was like an hour away, maybe less than an hour from them actually taking him to the office to get everything taken care of. It was like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, to where we actually got everything done and got him out of there.
Eric Martinez, were you scared?
Yeah, because they put you in a place where you're doing something you don't want to, and you just start thinking about everything that's over there and everything you hear on the news. So yeah, I was scared.
Why did you change your mind?
It's just mostly like what I want to do. I know that I don't have to go to the Army to do it. And I don't know, it's just the stuff on the news, and I have people that we know that been there, people we know that have relatives or people that have gone there that just come back really, really messed up, either physically or emotionally. And
I'd like to go to Democratic Congressmember Jean Green. You represent Houston in the U.S. Congress. What Irving and Eric are describing, it sounds like they're escaping from kidnappers, but this is the U.S. military. What is the legality of this? Eric is 17 years old. He is a kid. He's a minor.
Well, you know, this is not something that, as a member of Congress, I want to hear about, because it's not something that should be done. I represent the area where these young men went to high school. My children went to that high school, and my wife taught there for many years. Texas and Harris County has a great recruitment record. I would hope we could recruit these young men and women without having to play games on them, keep them in some type of solitary confinement while we're waiting to ship them off to somewhere. You know, the non-binding contract is the bottom line. If they signed with the ability to change their mind later on, that should be the bottom line, not that they play games with them. And that's not what the military or the U.S. government should be proud of doing. And this is the second time something like this has happened at that particular recruiting station. And I have an office right close to that station. And I'd like the Department of Defense to say, wait a minute, let's do recruiting honestly. Hopefully this is not happening in other parts of the country, but if it isn't, then why is it happening at this one location?
Let's bring Douglas Smith in, Public Affairs Officer for the U.S. Army Recruiting Command, talking to us from Louisville, Kentucky. As you listen to this description by these two young men and what happened to Eric being brought to this hotel, and the conversation, the recorded conversation with the recruiter threatening Irving, saying he'll go to jail if he doesn't go into the military, what are your thoughts?
Well, I can't comment specifically on what they've said, because the Army Recruiting Command is investigating their allegations against the recruiter. The recruiter has been removed from the recruiting station pending the investigation. All I can tell you is that we do have procedures in place for future soldiers who want to be released from their contract. The procedures are going to involve them having to speak to their recruiter, explain their reasons for wanting to be released from the contract. At that point, the recruiter is probably going to try his or her best to remind them of all the good reasons that they chose to enlist in the Army. But ultimately, the recruiter is expected to provide them information on what the procedures are to request in writing to be released from the contract, followed up by an interview with the recruiting company commander, and ultimately approval of their request by the lieutenant colonel who would be the commanding officer of the recruiting battalion that the station and the company belong to.
Maureen Haver, you're founder of Not Even One.